Welcome into Boxing Scene Today here at the ProBox TV studios. You got your time machine ready? Because we're going to take you on a little journey back to 1985. That's right, 40 years ago this week, the war between Tommy Hearns and marvelous Marvin Hagler, one of the greatest fights of all time. If you haven't seen it, check it out on YouTube. To help me with it in studio, Jimmy Smith, alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, Coach Robert Garcia. I know you saw this one, Robert. It was 40 years ago. Let me run you some numbers. Both guys, all right, you had Marvin Hagler. He got just under $6 million, $5.6 million. Tommy Hearns got 5.4. Tommy Hearns 40-1. Marvelous Marvin Hagler 62-2. An incredible collision. It lasted 3 rounds. Anyone who saw this remembers it to this day. I think Robert and I are the only ones that remember seeing it actually at the time. But Robert, what did this fight mean? Man, when you look at the technique, these two legends, they just tried to kill each other for 3 rounds. It was almost, it's hard to describe watching this fight, right?
Look, it's one of those fights that you just don't get tired of watching. You can watch over and over, and you're never gonna get tired. You know, I was a 10-year-old when that fight happened, and my dad always used to sit us down to watch fights. Sugar Leonard was one of my favorites at that time. My dad would always sit me down to watch Sugar Leonard, but he competed against those guys too, and they had all those fights were happening against each other. I didn't even know that's the kind of money they were making 40 years ago, man.
$1985.
That money goes a long way. 85.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. That's $40-50 million right now. So that was great for them, man. That was awesome. They had great careers. It was one of the best fights of all times.
And it was from the get-go, it was one of those fights where there were no breaks. They just both hit the gas. Chris, it's one of those fights you show guys and you go, hey, don't fight like this, but you got to see this fight. You should. I know you got some relatives right now in the amateurs. You go, hey, don't fight like this, but watch this fight. Am I wrong?
Well, since we're aging ourselves, I was 13 months old, Robert, when this fight happened, so I did not watch it.
But you have seen it.
They tell you don't check your emotions when you fight. Not this fight.
No,
this fight was all
these
emotion.
guys. Listen, leave it at the door. These guys both brought it to the ring that night. They both brought it into the ring through the ropes.
Of emotion.
I used to show when I was dating in my late teens and early 20s, and I was fighting, and girls would be like, "You box? That's really dangerous and weird." I would always show them this fight, and I would be like, "You want to see?
You want to see dangerous and weird?
You want to see dangerous?
Right.
You want to see? Why I'm doing it?"
He made it weird, bro.
But they always loved it because the violence of that first round. So which you mentioned, Jimmy, this is one of the best fights in history. It's only 3 rounds. It is, I think, hands down recognized as the best round in history. The first round is, I think they call it that, the best round in boxing history. You can't not watch that first round of that fight. I don't care if you've never seen a round of boxing in your life and go, wow, this is a sport of giants. This is a sport of gods and kings. Because the way that those two guys went at each other, it was visceral. Down to your core, you could feel the violence.
Especially when you know what's on the line.
Well, even if you don't. He's just like, your life is death is on the line when you watch that first round. You don't have to know anything about either one of those guys. I don't need to know that he was 62-2 and that Hearns had 40 wins.
41, yeah.
And that they were splitting $12 million. You don't need to know any of that. When you watch that first round, you feel it in your guts. This is war. These guys are looking to kill each other. We're not touching gloves before. We're not, whatever happens afterwards. But at the end of the day, I'm here to whip your ass, and it's just nothing better than watching that first round.
The lead up, and I know you sparred with Dustin Poirier, a mixed martial artist, obviously in the UFC. He wore that to one of his fights, but that was from, a lot of people don't know, that's from Marvelous Marvin Hagler. In the press conference against Tommy Hearns, he wore this hat, a red hat that just said war on it. That mentality of, I don't care what happens, you're not going to take this away from me. That was how Marvelous Marvin Hagler fought all the time. It was personified in this fight.
It was how he trained, too. He called training camp penitentiary.
Yeah,
I would go away to camp. And that's one of the, Ali used to always go away to camp. A lot of the guys would go away to camp to get away from the problems that could be at home, your family, your kids, your wife, everything. Get away from your town. So you go away to camp. But Marvin took it to another level. He called it penitentiary. I'm going away. I'm not just going away because I'm getting out of town. I'm going away like I'm putting myself in a bad place. So come fight night, there are no bad places.
Yeah, and early on in the fight, Tommy Hearns, I think probably the hardest pound-for-pound puncher maybe in boxing history, pound for pound. His ability to snap that right hand. He hits Marvelous Marvin Hagler with God knows how many right hands. Of course, broke his hand during the fight, but...
I was going to make that point.
Yes.
I'm the resident hand breaker here. And
yes.
I Go ahead. Finish your point.
But the idea that Hagler was able to take those and keep going.
I have a very big beef with the memory of this fight because of that. You know, because people talk about this fight, and it's an amazing fight. I have all the credentials you guys are mentioning about it is amazing to me, and I've always loved this fight as well. But this is again why I feel the media is absolutely useless in anything. So all my life, I didn't see this fight as a champ. Didn't see this fight. I was too young. But, you know, you hear about it. You hear about it, and, you know, you hear about how amazing it is. And obviously, you end up watching it, and you end up agreeing what a fight. You know, you end up learning about the credentials. You know, you end up in your life in boxing. And you hear about this fight from time to time, just like, you know, a lot of amazing fights. It is one that it gets brought up occasionally, just like today we're bringing it up on the 40-year anniversary. I have an amateur career. Every once in a while, this fight gets brought up, just like other fights. You know, Tyson fights, Ali fights. You know, this fight gets brought up. I hear about, and what I'm saying is, many years of me hearing about this fight go by, and I'm always astounded by it, and it's always a positive thing, and it's still positive. I had a pad man. He passed away, rest in peace. So Orlando Carrasquillo, you know, and he was a really big historian. He used to have a lot of tapes and videos he used to always give me, and sometimes mid-pad session, we would start talking like random conversations about fights and stuff like that. And I remember we talk about, he brings up Hearns and Hagler in some way. And we're talking about, you know, maybe the way shots were thrown or something like that. Whatever. I don't remember the context of why it was brought up during that pad session, but I remember I would be in the ring and things would get brought up while we'd be working. And all of a sudden, he goes, yeah, you know, if only Tommy didn't break his hand. Yo, bro, this was like mid-2000s. Like, I'm in the midst of my pro career, maybe before fighting Cotto or maybe after fighting. I was like, wait, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, you know, Hearns broke his hand in that fight. I'm like, what?
Nobody mentioned that to
you? He goes, yeah. And Orlando goes to me, he goes, yeah, I remember like a week later, you know, they had them on TV, like talking about the fight, because back then they used to do that. He goes, and Hearns had a cast on and everything, you know, he broke
Smashed
his hand.
it. Yeah.
I was like,
First round.
dude, that changes the whole perspective of the fight. How don't I know this? Yeah. What kind of useless media do we have? And then, you know, as you learn, you go into your career and you deal with the media, you realize that they are absolutely useless. But at that time, you actually think they know better, you know? So I'm like, how have I never read this? How's this never been brought up? That's everything. Tommy Hearns breaking his right hand in round 1 against Hagler, who's coming at you like a truck, and the only thing you're going to use to stop him is that right hand. And in some moments in round 1, if you watch it, he actually does stop Hagler in his tracks. So if he's able to keep using that shot like that, maybe he stops Hagler, maybe he doesn't. But
split
one thing I'll tell you,
yeah,
once he breaks his freaking hand, you ain't stopping the truck anymore, because now you've committed to that momentum. Now you've got to deal with this momentum. Now you're one-handed. That fight is a war for 1 round. That fight is a war for 1 round. 2 and 3, it's Tommy trying to figure out, oh, shit. Now this pace is getting away from me. I can't hold this guy off me. This guy's really pissed off, and he's coming to destroy me, and I don't know what to do. And what are you going to do? Get back and start boxing him? Nope. Now you've committed to that pace. And that's the fight, dude. That's the whole fight. What we should be asking is, with that injury, why did we never get the rematch? You know what I mean? Everybody talks about the 80s. Like, oh, these guys, everybody fought each other. You know what we didn't get in the 80s, bro? Key rematches. You know, Duran gives a rematch to Leonard, and then Leonard wins, and we don't see him for 8 years. So we don't see them fight again for 8 years. When clearly that trilogy should have happened right away. This fight's another one of those. Hagler and Leonard's another one of those. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff that gets left on the table there as well. You talk about a glory era, glory days, and you remember fondly. I'm not even in that era. But now looking back and understanding how things should work, you're like, yo, dude, like, how was that not like the main focal point of the fight? How is that not still the main focal point of the fight? How does nobody know? I bet you there's people at home right now who are watching this video who are finding out for the first time that Hearns broke his hand in round 1. Because nobody ever talks about it, because you're all useless in the media. But honestly, that is the fight. The result hinges on that. I mean, I'm not saying for sure Hagler doesn't still win, but you got a different fight going forward if Hearns doesn't break his hand.
From a coaching...
Because it ain't like Hagler was defensively looking to slip it, bro. He was trying to walk through it, too.
Going right through it. What I'm curious about as a coach, when you look at the relationship, of course, you know, Emmanuel Stewart and Tommy Hearns, they went out going, okay, throw everything we got and make this a war in the beginning. To Paulie's point, can you then not turn it down again, Robert? It's like, hey, once we're at this pace, you got to go this pace until it's over. There was no talk in between rounds of like, all right, slow it down, go back to the jab. It was almost like it was too late at that point, Robert.
No, like these guys grew up together, you know, with you know, in Detroit with the Kronk gym,
Yep.
that, nothing but warriors there. There's no giving up, no my hand hurts, none of that stuff. Both trainer and fighter were raised like that in that gym. Going back to Paulie about nobody knowing about the broken hand. I think it's best that nobody knows about the broken hand. I think
But the result is there, Robert.
But it was such a good fight. It was, I tell my sons, my all the younger fighters watch that fight. I don't want to tell them, but Hearns broke his hand because that's gonna.
Yeah, but coach, it affects the way you fight. I've had broken hands. You have to absolutely change.
I'm gonna push.
I want them to
it doesn't
watch
matter.
a beautiful fight. I want them to watch.
It matters if you're Hearns.
Doesn't matter.
It matters if you lost.
Listen, you're hard men. Your hand broke. Oops, that sucks. You fight.
No, you did. You did.
I know.
He fought till he
but
dropped.
so to Robert's point, it doesn't matter. Why are you gonna water down the result?
It matters.
It doesn't matter. Listen.
Let us know, by the way, in the comments section which side you're taking here. Which side you're taking here.
It matters in the sense that, yes, it changes the fight, but it doesn't matter historically because, listen, okay, we both got bones. We got bones, right?
They are who we thought they were, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't mention the broken hand.
Okay, you mention it's fine, but you don't need to water down the result. I mean, the right guy won.
Why?
The harder man won.
You know why?
The harder man won.
You know why you got to mention it? Because there has to be, because then you realize there should be a rematch. The way it's a 3-round knockout, you don't think you deserve a rematch. Okay,
Yeah,
but now you have the broken hand. Now you're like, okay, they should have fought again.
Yes, right now, us saying this 40 years later, yeah, there should have been a rematch. But you got to go back in time now and think, okay, but why wasn't there? We don't know the details, and I'm pushed because you said, oh man, we didn't get the Hagler-Leonard rematch. We didn't get the Hagler-Leonard rematch because Hagler didn't want to fight anymore. He said, no, I'm not. I'm so disgusted with the sport. I'm out. I probably could have done that rematch.
He walked away after.
So we don't know what was going around that time, dude.
Leonard didn't fight Duran again after he beat him for
well,
years.
that one stands 100%.
Yes,
but he didn't have
and even Hearns,
head.
he didn't fight again until 8 years later. So I don't know.
But that's Leonard. He's the golden boy. He can do whatever the hell he wants.
Okay, so then we don't get that. But what about this?
The fourth
what about this?
My
point still stands.
Golden.
My point still stands. My point still stands. You can't not bring that up. That is everything. I don't know. Listen, the fight still has its glamour. We're talking about it right now because it's glamorous. It's everything.
But I'm just saying, dude. Maybe they didn't want it. Maybe Tommy was like, I don't want to go there again. I don't want to be in the ring with that guy. Maybe Marvin goes, I got the win. I don't want to be in the ring
Tommy
with that
didn't want to go there again. Tommy was still moving up in weight class. He was fighting till
I'm just
saying. 2000.
I'm not saying he said that. We just don't know.
Can you imagine what it'd be like, though? I know, but
all right, I got a question for you, Paulie. Does the broken hand elevate? Does it elevate Hearns or does it elevate Hagler in terms of the?
It elevates both of them. I mean,
right, but look, no, listen to me for 1 second. The punch in which he broke his hand would have crushed a bowling ball. He said, "Yeah, I hit him. He hit him on the side of the head, bro,
split his forehead like a watermelon,
and just crushed him." And Marvelous goes, "All right, let's see what you got." But obviously, Marvelous fought the next 2 rounds against a guy with a broken hand. Yeah. Who does it elevate that he took that shot that broke his hand and didn't go down?
Well, that's again more talking points to make both these guys amazing and why this fight is amazing. It essentially ended Hearns' ability to win the fight. I'll tell you that. And honestly, Marvin can also take that. Oh, I just took this guy's best shot. He doesn't know my hand's broken in that moment. I took his best shot. I got hurt, and I'm coming right back to you. Now I'm more pissed off. You didn't just intimidate me by hitting me with that. It might have hurt me, but I'm more pissed off now. So it elevates both of them in that way because Hearns is like, shit, where am I going now with this guy? But he didn't just crap out. He fought literally till he dropped. Yeah. Again, my problem is with the media, as usual. My problem with the media, because as a person who didn't live it, you guys lived it. Coach Garcia lived it. He got to see it. As a person who didn't live it, I didn't live it. So I got to look at history. I have to look at history at those days in hindsight, where I have to watch the tape already when it already happened. I didn't see it live. I'm too young for it. And I have to base opinions on the write-ups and everything else. How useless you are. I'm supposed to be educated. I am using you to be educated on this thing. You are useless, dude.
People care. They don't care. I'm telling you, they don't care.
I'm trying to educate. They should care. Because those things like injuries like that, they make a difference in performance.
So Arturo Gatti fought Mickey Ward 3 times. The only time he ever dropped Mickey was in the second fight with a right hand. He broke his hand with that punch. Yeah. He also knocked eardrum out of whack.
But he didn't break his hand. That was tendons. I was in the doctor with Arturo. He tore his tendons. You can still keep punching with those tendons.
Fans don't care about that either. They don't care.
Yeah, I know, because it's the minute detail. We're splitting atoms now, and people don't realize the difference. You can punch with a tendon. I've had that injury too. The broken hand is much more difficult.
But one thing I will say, by the way, Robert, I was 8 years old during the war. You were 10, right? You and I were about, roughly the same age. It was common knowledge at the time that he broke his hand. It's not like they didn't. It was in the newspaper that he broke his hand during contemporary
How
reports.
did I find out till the mid-2000s?
I don't know, because people forgot.
I don't know. I knew. I read about it in a book.
Right. It's so elevated at this point. But I have a coach question for you, Robert. After Marvelous obviously beats Tommy Hearns, he fights John Mugabe, then he loses to Sugar Ray Leonard. In both of those fights, you could see the slowdown. He wasn't the same guy. Do you consider this the pinnacle of Marvelous Marvin Hagler? I think greatest middleweight of all time, Hall of Famer, et cetera, et cetera. Is this kind of his greatest moment to you?
I think that was one of his greatest moments. Definitely was. It was a fight that, it stays in history as one of the best of all times. Then he goes and, has a couple more fights, and he's not the same. He doesn't fight with the same anger or hunger. I don't know what it was, and then he retires.
Maybe it was at 6 million, Robert.
It was.
I'll do it.
It had to be. But,
In $1985, folks.
When going back, honestly, I'd rather not even mention about a broken hand, because the fight was so good that I don't want people or my kids, my young fighters, to think, oh, wow, that was a broken hand. No, I want them to remember as one of the greatest fights of all time. What 3 rounds, the best 3 rounds of all time. That's all that matters.
I'm outnumbered over here.
Hey, by the way, let us know in the comments, all right? Whose side are you taking in this hand debate? But Chris, same question to you. As much as, I love Marvelous Marvin Hagler. In the Mugabe fight, his durability once again won in the fight, did win by knockout in round 11, but this idea that the gears were slowing down. He told Leonard his knees are shot. I can't do the road work I used to do. You saw the physical slowdown after this fight, or maybe it became more pronounced after this fight.
But the Mugabe,
I was going to say,
the Mugabe fight itself doesn't get the credit it deserves.
Well, it's a great fight.
Itself was a beast.
Oh, it's a
Maybe he didn't have the
monstrous
reputation
fight.
built up yet as Hearns did, but. Yo, you went from Hearns to Mugabe?
Yeah, but
shit, find me a guy today that does that.
Oh my God, nobody.
And actually good, because you actually were making my point for me. The Mugabe fight took a lot out of him too. I think there was, was he over the hump, so to speak, from the Hearns fight? Did that fight take a lot out of him? Absolutely. Did it change his kind of perspective in the way he's going to fight? Yes. You saw him going to the Mugabe fight. He boxed smart because he knew how dangerous that man was, but also he took some big shots. And I think the Mugabe fight actually took a lot out of Hagler going into that Leonard fight.
I think it took a lot out of Mugabe too.
I think it ruined Mugabe. Actually,
Mugabe was a 100% knockout puncher. I think
Mugabe was he was something special. He could punch. He had good technique. He was so big and so strong for that weight class. And Hagler gave him so much respect. Came out of the southpaw position. He was jabbing. He was moving. He was boxing. Switched sides a few times. But again, he took some big shots because Hagler did get hit. He's a very durable guy, and I think that fight also was made his fall from his physical best, his physical peak, that much faster.
25-0, all knockouts.
Yeah,
when John Mugabe fought Marvelous Marvin Hagler, 25-0.
That's your homework today, guys. Watch the war, Hagler Hearns, and then watch Hagler Mugabe.
Oh my God! But all right. Before I go, I got to ask you guys this question, and I feel like I run into this a little bit a lot more as I get older. There are certain fights that, once again, I'm older than you guys, but you had to see this fight to know boxing. Yeah. And when I say the war, you go, oh yeah, Tommy Hearns, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, 1985. We all say it. Talking to a modern fan, like, huh? And you go, no, the war, the Four Kings, and they're like, what do you? You know what I mean? It's this idea that and it is normal, because the guys I came up with were like, oh, Sugar Ray Robinson, Jake LaMotta, you didn't see. Now, I've caught up on all those, but they weren't the canon when I was a kid. But this, Paulie, as a boxing fan and a boxing aficionado, this is a canon fight. Got to know this fight. Yes.
It is a canon fight, and as you get older and you become studious with this kind of stuff, you start to look at the little finer details, like I said, like the broken hand, things like that. But also, you start to learn about both of these guys and their career prior, their career after, and you start to appreciate them more, and you start to appreciate what this meant in the moment, or the resounding effect this had on the sport, the resounding effect this had on their careers in general. If you look at Hagler, you look at his resume, it's an amazing resume, with all the defenses he had. But also, if you look at how many defenses Hagler had against monster punchers, dude, like most guys stay away from punches. Like, this guy fought, and there are punchers that didn't become famous because of Hagler. You know what I mean? Like, I've mentioned before that Argentine guy that I always forget his name, the Argentine guy, that he was like cracking Hagler. Hagler thumbs him and then just beats the crap out of him and knocks him out. You know what I mean? And like, that guy had almost all knockout wins. Mugabe had almost all knockout wins. Hearns was knocking everybody out, And that's just 3 off the top of my head, A guy like Mustafa Hamsho was vicious as well. He fought him twice. Like, Juan
Roldan,
yeah, a guy that people will not remember because he didn't become champion due to Hagler.
Dude, Vito
Vito's
a rough guy.
Wasn't a puncher, but he was
rough,
rugged, tough, always in your face. What I'm saying is, Hagler fought guys that put a lot of miles on the odometer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because even though he was a destroyer, those guys were durable themselves and also hit hard themselves. Hagler went through guys like that, man. He was running through people like a truck, but he was running through other trucks like a truck. He was the monster truck, you know what I mean? And then it puts everything in perspective when you look at what Hearns was doing going into this fight as well, and you're like, wow, dude, can you imagine being in the moment like Coach Garcia or you being in the moment to where you get to anticipate what was going on before the fight? Like that anticipation when you don't know the result, we can only talk, me and Champ Chris, we can only talk about it post-result. It's not the same thing. And that's what I tell people about, because I'm a little younger, but I'm old enough to remember the Mike Tyson days. And I always tell this generation, you don't know what it was like to wake up. You think you like Tyson. Yes, there's a mystique. But you don't know what it was like to wake up the morning of a Mike Tyson fight. I know what Mike Tyson...
not versus Jake Paul. Like a real Mike Tyson.
Pre-Buster Douglas Mike Tyson. Not after. Because afterwards, it's not the same anymore. You don't know what it was like to wake up the morning of a pre-Buster Douglas Mike Tyson fight. It was phenomenal. It was like, I'm in second, first, third grade. Kids at school are talking about it all week. Like, we're little kids. But that he was a part of like the dinner table discussion in everyone's family, because the boys in first, second, and third grade were at lunchtime talking about the Tyson fight's going to happen.
I say it all the time.
You know?
Mike is the most recognizable person in the world.
Exactly. So I can't imagine, just like I tell some people that appreciate Tyson, but they didn't get to watch him live in those days. You can only watch it in post is not the same thing. I know, because I remember that. So I can't even imagine what it was like to be a fan going into the war between Hagler and Hearns and not knowing the result and wondering what's going to happen and having that sense of anticipation, that adrenaline, and waking up the morning of that fight. That must have been amazing. That is why this era of boxing is what it was.
If you're watching this video and you don't go immediately and go watch this fight, I don't know what's going on with your head.
Stop watching this because you're not a boxing
Jimmy,
fan.
And then you know what? Just for the heck of it, watch Hagler Mugabe too. That's a good fight, and it's underrated.
Jimmy, to your point about this being canon and like it's a fight that you have to watch, and if you're new to the sport, you show a person. It's only 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Listen, you know what fight I would love? Sugar Ray Leonard versus Wilford Benitez.
Yeah, love it.
But it's a long fight. It's a long, nuanced
That's
fight.
nice studious.
You're watching
IQ.
2 beautiful, amazing jabbers. You know, match wits for 15 rounds.
Yeah.
This is 3 rounds of savage, raw action. You can show someone who's never watched a round, like I said before, and they're going to appreciate it.
We can do IQ fights on another episode. I have 2 IQ. Just while we're on the subject, I'm going to mention my 2 IQ fights. And Wilford Benitez and Ray Leonard is one. My IQ fights for me are where both guys are high IQ. My 2 IQ fights are Leonard Benitez and James Toney versus Mike McCallum. Just saying, if you want to watch 2 high IQ fights, you know.
Can I bring one up?
Go ahead, of course, you're here.
How about Salvador Sanchez, Wilfredo Gomez?
Oh, I love that fight.
But that's a shootout. That's a shootout.
Yeah, but they're both high IQ and dangerous.
That's a shootout. But that's entertainment on top of entertainment as well.
You can show someone who doesn't know the sport that one. They'll still enjoy it.
That's what I'm saying. That's a shootout. That's like you can show anybody that fight. The IQ fights, typically, you got to know boxing to really like them. But the shootout fights, you can show anybody. Salvador and Gomez, anybody could watch that fight, and they will love that fight as well.
Me personally, it's got to be Leonard Hearns. There are 3 different fights within that fight as they change strategies and adjust to one another.
Underrated,
that's a great IQ fight. But as we're saying goodbye, I got to say, marvelous Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard. I was 10 years old. I remember going to the store, and it was packed because everyone's getting their shopping done before the fight started. It was like the Super Bowl.
That's what I'm saying.
It was like the Super Bowl.
Well, there's a storm coming. You're getting ready for the storm.
You got all your stuff because we got to be home because the fight is happening. I love those days. Coach, thank you so much for walking down memory lane with us. More to come, of course, on Boxing Scene Today. Tune in for the big fights. We'll talk about them because this is where you get your boxing news. Tune in. Find out why millions are watching.